Got a pretty weird looking eyeball-shaped building. It's a video I've wanted to do for a long time. I'm here outside the RAND Corporation, which is like a super top secret. I don't know if a lot of people know much about this RAND Corporation, but it's a super top secret place. I think they might even be, maybe they'll be pissed off that I'm recording out here, but it's a public street. Anyway, this thing, it's really kind of like the granddaddy of them all, of these non-profit kind of think tanks that blur the line between corporate and government and charity. Like, why is this non-profit? I don't really understand. I mean, I kind of do. I should speak to Charles about it. I didn't know anything about non-profits. I never thought about them at all before I met Charles, and he started talking about the Clinton Foundation and all that. But this thing, like I said, it's the granddaddy of them all. It was started in about 1945. They tell you all about it in their own documents, on their website. They talk about their history. It's a decades-long journey. Basically began right after World War II. It's pretty closely associated with the Air Force. They envisioned rockets and satellites in the 1940s before any of that stuff was made. They had this contract with the Air Force, which was called Project RAND, or the RAND Project, something like that. It comes from R&D, research and development, and it was basically spun out of the skunk works of the Douglas Aircraft Corporation. They've been involved in developing the internet. It was sort of a precursor or maybe a parallel organization with ARPA, which later became DARPA. And I mean, look, on the one hand, it makes sense. We want to have our best technological minds in the United States working to protect the country from our potentially dangerous adversaries. But at the same time, I got a lot of questions about how this thing operates and what exactly it's supposed to do, and ultimately who it benefits. Right now, they're very interested in AI. We'll talk about that a little more later in the broadcast. Obviously, a lot of people are very worried about AI. They've got cameras all over this thing. From my point of view, this is like a CIA cutout, this place. It was very closely linked to the Air Force, and the Air Force started out as the Army Air Force. I don't know why they needed to separate it from the Army. I'm sure answering that question would answer a lot of the mysteries about why that thing is so mysterious. But, the thumbnail for today, it's an aerial view of it. Doesn't it look like an eyeball? I've explored this previously, I think, with David Hawkins. It's even got a pupil in there. And there used to be a checkerboard on that pupil, like, kind of like a Masonic checkerboard. It's 1776 Main Street in Santa Monica. So the Douglas Aircraft Corporation was based around here. There's, Santa Monica Airport has got a museum in it, and like an aviation museum. But yeah, I think a lot of people have no idea what that is. It's just like an office building here in the middle of this super swank area of Los Angeles. And they invented, packetized data, which is the foundation of the internet, distributed networks. Obviously, after the development of the atomic bomb and the proliferation of nuclear missiles, they needed new strategies for how to understand war, and that's a think tank. They're thinking in there. But so it was created in about 1945. The Air Force was created in 1947 by the National Security Act, same thing that created the CIA. So sort of like post-World War II, all this stuff was coming about. You had Operation Paperclip, we know about, other Air Force related jackasses who, I believe, have relatives who were involved in Operation Paperclip. I want to be careful that I'm not seen as like scoping this building out so much as just walking around the neighborhood. But there it is. It's, you know, it's kind of embedded in the middle of this swank neighborhood. And yeah, so it's a nonprofit. It achieved nonprofit status in 1950. When it first started, it got like $1 million grant from the Ford Foundation. The 990s on ProPublica only go back a couple years. I don't know how we could get the 990s for the rest of the thing. We'll have to look into that. But I mean, look at the multiple millions in this thing. It's got like $500 million in there. And again, I think Charles would say, why is this thing a nonprofit? You just look at the dollar amounts being spent and the lack of transparency. You know, it's not a government agency. We look at the people who are working for it. The CEO or the president and CEO is getting $1 million. Look, why is that nonprofit? That seems like a very high salary for somebody working in a nonprofit. I mean, and this is the loophole, right? We've spoken a lot about these networks of nonprofits, how they can transfer money back and forth, finance all kinds of weird things. It's like a network of nonprofits. This thing is similar in size to the Brookings Institution, and there's actually a long history between the two of them. Daniel Ellsberg, he's the whistleblower or whatever he is, who revealed the Pentagon Papers. He died in 2023, and the RAND Corporation, they made this statement on the passing. He worked there from 1958 to 1970, and the documents that are the Pentagon Papers was a copy of a classified report, the United States-Vietnam Relations, 1945 to 1967, a study prepared by the Department of Defense. He photocopied them there at the RAND Corporation. I don't know if it was this building, maybe it was, but he photocopied these documents and he leaked them to the New York Times. Now, I've always had a lot of questions about the Pentagon Papers. Daniel Ellsberg is seen as a hero by a lot of people, you know, a whistleblower. But I got a lot of questions, particularly when I read that book, How to Get Rid of a President, which was written by that CIA stooge / Brookings Institution fellow. What's his name? David Priest, I think. He's on Twitter. He's got himself photographed with George H.W. Bush. Another really slimy, deep state scumbag. Pretty loud. But you know, Nixon was mentioned in that book, and he talks about how he wanted to blow the safe and get it, talking about the Pentagon Papers. This came from the Nixon tapes. He said that, I guess, to Kissinger there. So many snakes around Nixon, very similar to Trump, you know. But blow the safe, he was talking about a safe at the Brookings Institution. The trio focused on a different set of classified documents that Nixon believes reflect, well, people can read that, but it's, you know, get in there and blow the files. It was a plan to break into the Brookings Institution. So why were they at the Brookings Institution, these documents from the RAND Corporation? I mean, like I said, it's this network of nonprofits that, why are they nonprofits? What are they doing? How are they not just intelligence cutouts? And if they're like warring, look, I'm not taking a position on whether Nixon was a good or a bad guy, but we have these really not very transparent tax-exempt entities who's basically using our money to pay their executives $1 million a year and have these fancy office buildings in the middle of Santa Monica, California, which is just super, super expensive. This is an apartment building, not an office building, but you can't really, there it is over there, I think. You can't really tell it apart from the swankiest apartment buildings around here. I mean, is this a way for the CIA or whoever to avoid transparency? Because But let's look at some more of these documents here. Yeah, here's the Brookings Institution. I mean, this is between the two of these things, they have $1 billion basically. And there's all kinds of weird things that we can read about this. I don't claim to be an expert on the RAND Corporation. I just wanted to bring people's attention to it and talk about it a little bit more because, you know, this is part of the apparatus of the deep state. Here's the Brookings Institution, $400 million in assets, $487 million, $109 million in revenue. Why are these things tax exempt, and why are their CEOs getting paid $1 million? Why aren't they, you know, just corporations? I don't know. I mean, again, these are questions maybe for Charles. Not that he would know the answer, but he'd be able to analyze this data more effectively than me. So these guys are sort of the founders, and this also makes me very suspicious. Curtis LeMay, he was a general in the Air Force, didn't like Kennedy and was pretty closely associated with the Kennedy assassination. They say it wasn't founded by a single person, but, you know, we've got this whole history with the Douglas Aircraft Corporation and Curtis LeMay. You know, these guys from 1945 to 1950 was when they, I think, really decided, hey, this thing's working great. We should make it tax exempt. I mean, that's the thing. It's just, I got to really wrap my brain around it and try and understand a little more about how it works, because it just doesn't seem like it should be legal. It tells the government what to do, and it gets involved in everything from not just, you know, think tank about warfare. They have a whole healthcare department that did this study about health insurance outcomes, and if health insurance were free, would that improve outcomes? And they did all kinds of weird tests and studies. I'm sure if we looked into whatever was going on with COVID, they were involved with that. One of their big things is they love talking about disinformation, fighting disinformation online. They had this whole initiative called Truth Decay, which is almost ridiculous. And we know that there's a link between disinformation and the Brookings Institution, because Nina, nasty Nina, who's that guy? Look, there's all these like top secret looking dudes walking around here. That guy was just looking at me in a way that, you know, I don't think there's any prohibition against being out here and photographing the exterior of a building. They might not like it, but definitely when I, you know, walked up with this camera, they were kind of looking at me crooked. I don't know who could possibly be in here, but, you know, another reason why this thing had initially come to my attention was they did this review of Bot Sentinel, or just, I don't know what it is. It's, you know, they're talking about Bot Sentinel, founded in 2018. This was very strange to me. For people who don't know or maybe haven't been following for long enough to have heard about my disagreements with Bot Sentinel, this is a website created by Chris Boozy that purports to find and mitigate disinformation online. Oh yeah, their about page is gone, but he's still there with Bot Sentinel. I mean, Chris Boozy is not at all a serious person. You know, we have this big fancy office building dealing with warfare and disinformation, and Chris Boozy is like a loudmouth clown on the internet. I mean, he's literally an internet super troll. But, you know, his whole connection to the Brookings Institution was when I started questioning Ben Wittes about the death of Peter Smith. That's when Boozy appeared, and he destroyed my Twitter account and my Facebook account and my YouTube account. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. What kind of malicious activity is this thing behind, that they just get to tell you that Trump is a Russian agent and Peter Smith, you're not allowed to look into that? If they don't like the journalism that you're doing, they can destroy your accounts and take away your income. Why should that be tax exempt activity? And why should the CEO of this thing get paid $1 million to write reviews of people who are destroying my ability to earn a living at all? By the way, If you like seeing me do these kind of walks and talks around the country, please become a sponsor of the show on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You can also sponsor the show by going to X and following me there at JG_CSTT and subscribe. See, the interesting thing about X is, remember when Elon Musk bought it, he said he was going to eliminate inauthentic accounts. And I see Chris Boozy using a lot of inauthentic accounts. I see a lot of accounts that, use fake names and stuff like that. He almost made it seem, and look, he owns it. It's a privately owned company. He could do whatever he wants. But he almost made it seem like he was going to have almost like two different layers, where if you weren't paying and weren't verified with your own credit card, your role and your reach would be sort of minimized. I actually don't mind that, making it a nominal $3, $8, $5, whatever it is a month payment, not to rip everybody off, but to reduce the reliance on advertising. I mean, this is the same reason why I do that, is that I don't want to have the influence of advertisers, where some advertiser could say, oh, we don't like the report that you're making, we don't like you're talking about this or that. When it's individuals who are paying for the service, you don't have that kind of outsized influence of a big advertiser. So I was like, hey, I'm on board with what Elon Musk is saying. And he also said, your credit card, fake people don't have real credit cards. It's one level of authentication that they can go to. But we learned, John Cullen, not a real name, somebody else paid for his blue check mark. So it quickly sort of became, just as long as you can pay, you can get that sort of false authentication. So we basically know that Elon Musk, let's call it exaggerated, about the authentication of accounts on X versus Twitter. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is because it goes back to Chris Boozy. My beefing with him after the whole Ben Wittes deal, when that was going on, Chris Boozy's account had 80,000 followers. And I noticed that immediately when Elon Musk bought X, Boozy went to 300,000 followers. And I don't think he really substantially changed what he was talking about. I've been on there long enough now and gained enough experience in using that platform to understand that when big events happen, COVID and the Trump assassination attempt and the Charlie Kirk assassination, if you're in there doing reporting, you can greatly increase. There's another one of these robots. They're everywhere. See, maybe our friends at the RAND Corporation are developing food delivery robots to drive around and deliver sandwiches or whatever the hell that thing is doing. We're living in the future. But the point is, there are certain events that can happen where, if you're out front with high quality reporting and a lot of people are interested in hearing about whatever it is you might be reporting on, you can have these incidents where you greatly increase your influence. But I've been involved in several of those things, and going from 80,000 to 300,000, I know there's something about it that just doesn't seem authentic to me, really. Almost like Chris Boozy and Bot Sentinel were being boosted like that. Like maybe, I don't know, did our buddies at the RAND Corporation have something to do with the development or the deployment or growth of Twitter? We know that Adam Sharp was very involved in it, and his father was in the Dallas police station on November 22nd, 1963. Curtis LeMay, as I said, he's very closely associated with the JFK assassination, not in a good way. And also RAND Corporation, they did this study about acquiring generative artificial intelligence. This was back in July. Didn't Pete Hegseth just announce pretty recently that the Department of Defense is going to start using generative artificial intelligence. I mean, again, oh yeah, bottom line up front. Who always says that? It's interesting, right? I mean, maybe that's a general term that's used across lots of different industries, but, you know, I don't know. I'm very curious about this RAND Corporation. I think we're going to need to look at it more closely. You know, we're all here working and struggling like ants, and then these, in my opinion, criminal scumbags are getting $1 million a year tax-exempt funds from our money to develop tools like Bot Sentinel and things that are used against us very unfairly. There's another scumbag who I feel is guilty of crimes. Haven't been adjudicated necessarily yet, so that's my opinion, but he's closely associated with the Air Force too. Hi. So you see, we got a lot of top secret looking people scooting around this building. Oh, did he just go in? So I'm sure I'm being monitored just walking around this place. I'm not doing anything. I'm not threatening the building. Oh, that's not part of the same building. That's just a guy going into an apartment building. This is the RAND Corporation here. But they have another office in Virginia. You know, it's private property, no trespassing. It's under video surveillance, of course. And that's fine. All of that is fine. The stuff that I object to is, you know, the enabling of surveillance technologies. I mean, this thing, in my view, is kind of like, you know, I don't know, it's like the granddaddy of technocracy, maybe the crucible of a technocratic future, which is pretty undemocratic. I think that's the problem. Like, of course, we want national security. We want the best technology to prevent nuclear war and provide communications in the event of war and mitigate the possibility of war and all of that stuff. But we can't have our rights being violated. We can't have criminals like Chris Boozy and Ben Wittes. I mean, what is Trump doing? Ben Wittes, nothing has been mentioned about him. Andrew Weissman, there was a video series by that guy, Michael Francis, talking about, or what's his name? You know, that guy who's a mobster turned, you know, YouTuber. He had 2 videos about Andrew Weissman. I don't know that Weissman is really associated with Brookings, but I guess he's given speeches there and stuff like that. All of these things do sort of interconnect. I mean, yeah, he is, because, you know, he was on the Mueller investigation, and that was all about, you know, get Trump. And why is this thing shaped like an eyeball? Are they like playing games with us? Isn't it sort of the biggest waste of space in this incredibly expensive real estate area to have your entire middle of your building empty? Like, why would you design it like that? Unless you're trying to make it look like an eyeball just to freak people out. I don't really get it. In 1776 Main Street, I don't know. It's all kind of in the category of things that make you go, what do people think about this? RAND Corporation. Inventing the internet. All kinds of things. And that guy, who was the guy that the movie Beautiful Mind was about? He was involved over here. It's another one of these things where it's like they're combining like government, academia, private industry. And like I said, you know, you want to be able to capitalize on all the best resources to protect the country and keep everybody safe and all that kind of thing. But it's undemocratic. It's all super secret. Like, why do they get our tax money by being tax exempt? We're subsidizing what they're doing, and also grants and things. So this guy just walked out of there. None of these people are going to talk to me, and they don't have any obligation to, so I'm not even going to bother to ask them anything. But it would be interesting to know what the hell they're doing in there. Robots. Did he say robots? I guess they are. I'm sure they are. Artificial intelligence is a very big deal. Anyway, so this is, oh, speaking of robots, there's Waymo. No car, no driver in that vehicle. I mean, I'm sure people around the country have seen a lot of these. I think I did see one in New York City. I can't really see in there. It's getting to be a bit dark. But there's no driver in the Waymo. We really are living in the future. Robots driving around delivering food. Robots driving taxis. Where does it all ultimately go? I do not know. But that's all I really have to say about the RAND Corporation right now. Just wanted to stop by there and have a look. It's a really loud motorcycle. And get people thinking about it. Maybe it's a topic we can explore in future shows. I'll ask Charles about it. Like I said, it was some kind of grant from the Ford Foundation. There's a couple of good videos I was listening to on YouTube and stuff about the formation of it, the founding of it. It's a very strange thing. The RAND Corporation and the Brookings Institution. You know, Bill Clinton's buddy, what's his name, Strobe Talbot. He was the CEO of the Brookings Institution for a long, long time, right at the time they were trying to get Trump. So that's what I mean. If these things are subverting democracy, how could that possibly be tax exempt? How could that possibly be good? Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to become a sponsor of the show. Go to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or follow me on X at JG_CSTT. Sponsor the show there. Thanks for